India's retail inflation has cooled to 5.48% in the month of November, providing relief after October's breach of the Reserve Bank of India's 6% upper tolerance limit. The moderation came as the arrival of fresh produce helped ease soaring vegetable prices. Food inflation, which constitutes nearly half of the CPI or the Consumer Price Index, also dipped to 9.04% in November, down from 10.87% in the month of October. However, rural inflation surged to 9.10%, up from 6.68% the previous month, while urban inflation climbed to 8.74% compared to October's 5.62%. Let's try and make sense of this. Mithali Nikore, founder and chief economist, Nikore Associates, is with us this morning. Good morning, Mithali. Inflation data coming in, one would say hot, not as hot as it was in the month of October. What do you make of this print, and what does the road ahead seem like?
So first of all, thanks Karthik for having me here this morning. I think that there is a cyclical element to what we are observing here. So if you look at it, just about 1 quarter ago and even 1 month ago, we were talking about high top prices, tomato, onion, potato. And we were talking about the fact that these top commodities are the ones which are actually leading food inflation, which was crossing nearly 11% and even inching up to 12%. Now suddenly we find that 2 months later this has actually slowed down, this has eased up. Food inflation is coming in at about 8 to 9%, which is a reduction of at least 1 to 2 percentage points. And the overall retail inflation, again starting to ease up. It was around just a little above 6% about 2 months ago, and now it's come down to below 6%, very much within the RBI's limit of 4 to 6%. Why is
Yeah,
this happening? I
r-
mean, major reasons
sure. Go
one
ahead,
of the
Mithali.
major reasons is that we find that there has been, of course, an improvement in the climate. There has been an improvement in the drought situation, things getting better, but this does not address some of the fundamental challenges of inflation. I mean, this is more cyclical as opposed to structural.
Right. I wanted to, in fact, come to the cyclicality of it, Mithali, but before that, while inflation has come down from double digits to single digits in food inflation particularly, but at the end of the day, we are still talking about inflation and the fact that prices are still going up, although not going up at the same clip as they were growing at earlier. So overall, the problem in the system of high prices, especially high food prices, continues to persist.
So, Karthik, again, here we have to look at it a little bit, on major commodities, vegetables, as well as then, looking at cereals and milk, then we get to that level. And the top commodities, as I was saying, is still something which is like a staple for the Indian diet. Tomatoes, onion, potatoes is something everybody uses. Those are still going up a little bit faster. And where we see the easing is actually coming in cereals, milk, and, fruits and vegetables to some extent, because again, in the winter season we see that there are fewer disruptions in the supply chain, there are fewer disruptions in the logistics supply chain, and of course the overall production has also eased up. But this doesn't mean that next year this will not happen again. If we have one bad monsoon, one drought, again the system is not free of risks, and we
Right.
need to start improving our supply chains.
Right. Mithali, my simple question to you, and for the sake of our viewers and to simplify it for them, while inflation is still coming above the RBI threshold of 4%, while it is below the RBI's tolerance of 6%, the problem really is, like you're mentioning, it's cyclical, it is not structural, and we are completely dependent on monsoon. So in the wake of the problem being supply side, is there any merit in RBI not cutting interest rates?
So I think, Karthik, this is what we have all been debating for the last, I mean, you and I have been doing this, and we've been doing this on other with other anchors at News 9 as well. We really do not understand why the rates are not being cut in this cycle. I mean, if we look at the GDP data, we clearly found that GDP data for Q2 came in at 5.4%, which is one of the lowest in 2 years. We've also seen that now in this quarter, there's been like a little bit of an improvement in the industrial output and in manufacturing. And as I was also saying, even that is cyclical. We need to see more decision making. We need to see the PLI scheme again starting to rev up the engine engine on manufacturing, but it takes some amount of pushing and decision making and work from Invest India to actually get investors to come and
Absolutely.
commit their funds. So in that situation, you need to make borrowing more attractive, you need to make borrowing cheaper, and cutting interest rates will help to do that.
Absolutely.
Of course, because we need to invest in long term infrastructure measures to safeguard our supply chains, and that will be one of the better and more lasting solutions to inflation as opposed to only managing it through monetary policy.
Absolutely. Since you mentioned, Mitali, since you mentioned the industrial output, let's just look at those numbers as well. The index of industrial production, or IIP, rose 3.5% in October, which came in slightly higher than the 3.1% which was recorded in the month of September. Official data has also highlighted that manufacturing output has grown 4.1% year on year in the month of October, while electricity generation increased by 2% and mining activity surged by 0.9%. However, these growth rates mark a major slowdown compared to October 2023, when the sectors grew by 10.6%, 20.4% and 13% respectively. So, Mitali, is there really much to celebrate about the IIP numbers compared to the same numbers, the same industries in the year ago period?
So, Karthik, if you remember, 2023 was the year in which the PLI scheme was actually launched. And there was a lot of interest in the PLI scheme, the production linked incentive scheme, because, of course, a number of foreign investors were curious as to, what would be the benefits if they come to India, they invest, what kind of sort of back, what do they get back when they invest in India? Of course, it's linked to the amount of output production and even exports, right? Where India is trying to incentivize large foreign players to come make lasting investments. And it's a very good scheme. It's one of the best schemes designed globally at this point in time. And there are a number of investors who have taken the benefit of this scheme across sectors like smartphones and electronics, and even in electric vehicles, we are starting to see a lot of interest. However, there are certain limitations to the scheme, in terms of the fact that it does not actually ease the environment for what we call as ease of doing business. I mean, there is still, regulatory hurdles. There's still an environment where you need, constant interface with government officials, because at the state level, the implementation of the scheme will not be the same as the design of the scheme at the central level. So I think somewhere, to make the scheme a lasting success and to actually, have investors benefit from the merits of what is being offered under PLI, states need to come forward and really implement it in letter and spirit.
Right.
And it's only then which we will see the lasting impact of the scheme. Like last year, we saw, a kind of a blip, and to say that, oh, people came in, there was a burst of activity. And then now this year again, they're realizing, okay, maybe, the benefits of the scheme don't actually give us enough, given the costs of doing business.
Absolutely. So, stay with that thought. You're talking about foreign investments coming into India, and you're really talking about job creation and capital expenses being incurred. Explain this to me in the context of the Indian rupee, because the Indian rupee, which has mostly remained volatile throughout the year, has actually now depreciated 1.4% in the calendar year 2024. Now, according to some experts, Mitali, the currency could hit 85 rupees against the US dollar in coming weeks. Now, several contributing factors there. Some of these include foreign investor outflows from local equities, a strong dollar index, weak domestic growth data, and the recent appointment of the new RBI governor as well, which is leading to a lot of speculation. Again, at one level on rate cut, on the other end about the forex operations. So, how do you see the rupee dollar pair actually moving forward in 2025? And how will investments into India actually get impacted by the changes and the depreciation of the Indian rupee?
So actually, Karthik, we get a little bit worried about depreciation because we look at it often as consumers, that I would need to purchase, I would need so many rupees to purchase a dollar. However, and of course, this affects importers. People who are importing, for them, all the imports become more expensive because now they need more rupees to purchase their imports, because all the trade is being done in US dollars. But if you look at it from the point of view of exporters, and if whether it's exporters of goods or services, as well as of investors who are looking to purchase, investment stakes in the Indian market, those suddenly became cheaper. When you have rupee depreciation, when we are trying to sell our exports, it is cheaper for somebody abroad to
To buy
purchase
it.
our services and goods.
Right.
Similarly, if you are a foreign investor, now you get more rupees for your dollars, so you're able to purchase, more of an investment stake in Indian companies. So, I would say that we have to leave this a little bit to the markets to correct. Obviously, the rupee dollar exchange rate is not only dependent on what is happening in India, but also the strengthening of the dollar overall.
Right.
Because the dollar is strengthening against many other currencies. With the winning of Donald Trump, and there's a widespread expectation that the U.S. economy is suddenly going to have its best years in the next 3 to 4 years. So
Absolutely.
there's also a flight of capital towards U.S. denominated, dollar denominated bonds.
Right. I want to come to you quickly, Mithali, on a political economy story, and this is coming from the Aam Aadmi Party and Arvind Kejriwal yesterday trying to woo women voters, saying that under the Mahila Samman Yojana, there is going to be, a dole of 1,000 rupees per adult woman in the state of Delhi. At the same time, Kejriwal is saying that perhaps it is not likely to dent the fiscal position of the state and the finances of the state of Delhi. My simple question is, where else is the money going to come from? And in election season, run up to state elections, if these are the kind of promises being made, in your mind, where is this money really going to come out of if it doesn't come out of state finances?
So, Karthik, of course, it has to come from the state finances. It cannot come from, it's not a magic money that, he's
Right.
growing up, that tree of beans, and he's going to pluck out of that. But, to be fair to him and to be fair to any of the politicians at this point in time, most political parties across the spectrum are offering income support schemes and cash support schemes to women. And in many cases, these cash support schemes across states have been unconditional. What we call as an unconditional transfer, cash transfer, which is what he's saying, that if you are a woman who belongs to a certain income category, you would be eligible to get this benefit of, 1,000 rupees a month. So, I mean, many states are doing this. There are also other states that are offering, tied grants, that, okay, if you go to school, like, for example, in Maharashtra, and if we see, even in West Bengal, if you're sending your child to school, if you're not like, and even in Haryana, we see this, if you're saying my daughter will not get married before a certain age, then she is eligible to receive a certain benefit. So, these kind of conditional cash transfers also being experimented across different states. So I think the time has come to recognize the power of the woman voter. And I think women voters are really having their time in the sun. I'm quite happy about it, to be honest, as a feminist, to say that there are schemes that are now being designed to alleviate, women's economic position within the household, because we know that women are performing more than 10 times the unpaid care work within the households and the domestic work within the households. Women are doing 5.6 hours of unpaid care work every day versus men who do 30 minutes. So, if somebody is coming and saying, we're going to offer you 1,000 rupees, or we're going to offer you 2,000 rupees, I think from a gender justice lens and from a lens of women's economic empowerment, that's fine. But of course, as an economist and as somebody who really believes that there should be a smaller state, there should be a leaner state, we have to look at ways of managing social protection and saying that who can deliver this social protection and support best. Is it the government, or is it, community based organizations,
Or the
or
private
is
sector?
it through infrastructure investments rather than cash transfers?
Absolutely.
So I
Well,
think more
right.
more research needed there.
Right, Mithali, more research, and of course, I'm sure people like you will put that research together, and we will really see some affirmative action in the space of true women empowerment. Mithali Nikore, thank you so much for taking our time this morning.